Hi guys, so today I'm going to show you how to batch edit your images from your sessions so you can save a ton of time editing them and mostly with Photoshop actions, but I'm going to show you a little bit with Lightroom as well. So first of all, what I do is I open all my images into Lightroom, as you can see here, and then I rate them. So the way you can rate is you can click on the images that you like, and then you can click on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you can right click and set rating to 1 star. That's usually what I do. I just set rating to 1 star for all the images that I do like, that I want to save. Once I do that, I go here under rated. And then I select that 1 star, and all my images that have 1 star will show up in one place. That way what I can do is I can select all those images and open them all into Photoshop at once. So you select those images. So here you see I clicked on one, then I click Shift to select all of them. And then obviously I had already edited some, so I'm not opening those into Photoshop, but just to show you. And then I click on Edit into Adobe Photoshop. And that's going to open all my images into Photoshop. I'm going to show you that next. So now all my images here are open into Photoshop, as you can see. So once my images are here, I will be able to batch edit my images and apply an action to every single one of those images. But step 2 here, what I want to show you is how to modify an action so that you can create an action that will include all the actions that you already use. Here I'm using Storyville actions today just to show you. And I'm going to show you with Painterly how to modify an action to begin with. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is open that action here. So you see how you can click on that little arrow and it will actually show you the detail of that action. So all the steps that came with that action. I'm going to go at the bottom here and I'm going to delete where it says stop. Every action you're using to batch edit, I would delete every time it says stop like this. Just delete that. And then you can go ahead and run your action. So I'd go back in here. I'm just going to play it. And it's going to apply to my image here. And you can apply the same process to every action that you typically use one at a time. Just modify the actions a little bit. So here, something that I do every single time is I change my opacity for Painterly to 30%. So what I'll do here, so right now it's at 100%, right? So I'm going to actually go down here to make. And I'm going to record the end of my action, which is basically going to be me modifying that opacity to 30%. Then click enter and bam, it's saved. So now every time you run your action, your opacity will be changed to 30% or whatever you decide to do with whatever action you use. Personally, I modified actions such as the ones I was using a lot, which were smoothing, sharpening, image base. I made my little tweaks on them, my little modification, my little opacity change. What I wouldn't do, and absolutely do not do that, is select your layer mask and brush things off while you're recording your action, because that will also apply to every single one of your images, and you don't want to do that. For example, here with Painterly, I like to brush off people's face about 90% opacity. The Painterly action. I like to brush it off people's faces. If I save that into my action, it would also apply at that exact same spot on every single one of my picture, which I don't want to do. So you'll do that afterwards. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to show you once you've, selected each action that you use and apply that same, same technique I just showed you on how to modify your action, you can create your own action. So here's how you create your action. You want to create an action that's going to have all the actions that you use all the time. For example, for me, it was smoothing and sharpening. They were both modified to 50% opacity, both on smoothing and on sharpening. And I also took off every time it said stop on there. The other one is image base. I always use image base, but I modify image base at the end. So I actually created an action that's called base or basis that has smoothing, sharpening, and image base all encompassed into one action that I can apply and to batch edit my pictures. I personally use Painterly after that, so I don't batch edit Painterly. I just do it on each image that I want to do, because sometimes I want to put a little bit more of it or less, and so I can just kind of do it one by one. Same thing with all the other tweaks that I do, but you could technically run all the actions you want one after another, modify each image, just leave them there, then run another action through all your images, modify each image, close your images, whatever, and then save them. But here's how I created an action in order to batch edit with smoothing, sharpening, and image base. Personally, the ones that I use the most. So you click here on the little plus button, create an action right here. Just to go back, like if you don't have that thing that says action here, you can open it. You just go under Windows and then action, and that will open it here for you. I should have probably started with that, but if you need to do that, just do it there. Sorry, there's a lot of things that open. Okay, so now go into action and you'll create an action. And I'm going to name it basis. That's what I named it, base, whatever you want to call it. You could call it also all the actions you're using, so it helps you know what you're applying. And I personally saved it, instead of saving it in here, I'm saving it under Amanda Palmer Photography, because it's just like my workflow and this is what I do quickly. So, but you could save it under Storyville, whatever you want to call it. Now, I'm going to record the use of a few actions. So like I said, I wanted to record smoothing and sharpening, so I'll open that. And I'm going to run each action. So this is recording right now. I'm going to play smoothing, and you'll see that I made a little modification on smoothing. I made it go to 50%. Originally it's 100%. And then you could also modify your hair, but I modified it previously when I changed all my actions a little bit. Then you go to layer, flatten image. And you do that for all the actions that you will not be modifying individually, that you won't paint anything off of people's faces or whatever. Then go to like I did sharpening, same thing, you play the action. You could do that with whatever action you're using as is. There we go, and this one's already flattened. And then last I used, so I'm still recording. I'm recording my running those actions. And then I did image base, which is right here, image base. So I'll run that. And here you'll see the modification that I did to image base. So I have like opacity at 30% for Color Dazzle. I think I increased it a little bit from the original. And I modified each of them a little bit to my liking, to what I like seeing on my images. Now, I personally like to modify Color Dazzle and pin it off people's faces, because a lot of time it makes their face a little red because I increased it. So I like to paint it off, brush it off people's faces. So I usually do that at 30% opacity up here, use a black brush and brush it off people's faces. But I don't want to do that while recording that action. I'm actually going to end my action right here. So all my images are going to have that opportunity for me to brush things off where I don't want them with this action. So I'm going to actually stop here. But you could also, you know, if you use the actions as is and you don't make any modification, or you don't need to brush things off anything, you could also continue here and flatten your image. You could even save your image, and it would batch, flatten, and save your image. So that would all go into just one big action, and you're just throwing all your stuff. But I personally like to modify each picture one at a time afterwards into Photoshop, because I like removing blemishes and just adding light or whatever I need to do. So I personally leave it here. I don't even flatten this because I want to be able to modify my Color Dazzle to take it off people's skin a little bit. So here, I'm actually going to stop my recording just right here. And this is an action now that's showing under Amanda Palmer Photography that's called basis. You could put it wherever you want, call it whatever you want. Now I'm going to delete this. I'm going to show you how to batch edit. So this is the actual batch edit part. So you go to File and you go to Automate, and then you click on Batch and you select your action. So like I said, mine was under Amanda Palmer Photography. You could have it under Storyville or whatever, you know, group you have into your actions that you've saved it in. And then here under action, I'm going to actually select basis. As you can see, there's a few of them since I've created it for you guys for the video. And then you select your source. So your source could be a folder. Personally, it's all my open files. So it's every single one of those images that I opened from Lightroom. Just because I like first either doing a preset on Lightroom or just creating my own little tweak before importing it into Photoshop. Then you click on Open File, and it's going to apply those actions, or that action that has 3 actions in it, or however many you put, onto every single one of those images. And that takes a little bit of time. So while you do that, go ahead and go make dinner, go spend some time with your family, whatever. Usually for me, it takes about half an hour to run through everything. So I end up doing something else during that time instead of wasting my time on my computer. But it does it all at once. So that will actually save you a ton of time. So then you click OK. So here we go. I let it run its course, and now those actions have been applied to every single one of my images. So I can go from one to the next, and those same actions will have been applied. And on each of these, I have the option to change my color dazzle to what I want it to be. And then obviously I finish my editing and I can do whatever I want. So for example, like I said here, I like to brush off the color dazzle off their skin. Then I flatten my image. I could add a sunlight if I needed to, although on this one it's pretty great. So then I'll just continue my editing and end there. All right, and then finally what I do, I'll go through each image, like I said, make my little modification, and then I'll save them, send them back into Lightroom, and then I'll export my file, and that just kind of goes really quick that way. So yeah, let me know if you have any question on any of that, but basically I've shown you how to modify an action to your liking so that you can just use it. Like for example, here I could use Painterly. We could go back to it, and it will actually, so even if I use it afterwards, I'm not using it as a batch here, but even with the modification that I made with changing the opacity to 30%, that already saves me time. I already don't have to do that. And then I can just brush it off the skin of my subject to whatever opacity I like doing it at. And then I just save, and bam, that was super quick. That was a super quick edit. Here I would probably brighten their skin a little bit, save it into Lightroom, maybe modify a couple things again and save it, and that's it.